This episode of the Black Power Archives features excerpts from an interview with Mr. Watani Steiner in October 2016. At the time, Mr. Steiner was on parole for a conviction of conspiracy to commit murder in the killings of Black Panther members John Huggins and Alprentice Bunchy Carter at UCLA's Campbell Hall on January 17, 1969.
I prefer Watani Steiner. I was born in Houston, Texas. 1948, January the 30th. My conscious life began in Houston, Texas, in Jim Crow South. And I remember the segregated world that I was thrust into. The separate water fountain, going to the back of the bus. I remember even going to the back door of Mr. Fontenot's grocery store to buy milk and bread for my mother and grandmother. That was the life I remember in Houston, Texas. I grew up in a Catholic family. Everything was looked at as terms of saying our prayers, obeying the commandments, and staying in our place. And to me as a child, the only way I can make sense of that kind of segregated world was through the eyes of a Catholic child. So for me, it was a sin. I didn't look at it in terms of being, a discrimination or segregation. I looked at it as it'll be a sin to drink from the white water fountain. It would be a sin to go through the front door instead of to the back door. It was a sin to be in the movie theaters. We used to have to sit up in the balcony, and it was a sin if we could sit down there with the white folks. So this is the only way I can make sense of it. My father, he was teaching school. Dad had a PhD. He was a mathematician. When he went to the war, he went to World War II, and came back. And he had a real serious alcohol problem. He spoke several different languages. And then when he was in the house, he would be, citing all these things, and the family would be around. But once they start drinking, it's like all hell breaks loose. I was 7 years old. 7 years old when I left Houston. My mother wanted to leave and take us, because she had a sister living in Watts, Mary. Yes, and she wanted to, get away from him and get out of Texas, so because she's a registered nurse, so she wanted to, just get a job, a house, and just move us out of that environment so she couldn't take everybody together, so she took me and my oldest brother. We got on the Greyhound bus. That was a whole new world for us. Leaving Texas, particularly with mommy and her protective morality and her, the praying, and we would never curse. Cursing, it was just, that's you kids would never, and not only that, and hitting people in the face, that's dirty fighting. I mean, it was just so many things that was happening there. I remember we went to school, my brother and I used to have to run from school just every day. The teacher used to have to give us a head start, because we were from Texas, and our name, Steiner, Steiner, so it was just a whole bunch of things that were happening in the school thing that we used to wish we could go back to Texas, because these kids, they fight and they hit each other in the face. It was just like a whole new world we had to really try to adjust to, and I have a whole bunch of stories about some of the encounters and stuff we have. But you had to learn how to fight, or you gonna get whooped. Ain't no pleading. Like my brother had a fight, and I'm trying to plead with the guy. No. Do you believe in God? And I'm, and they wasn't hearing that. I believe in hitting you in your mouth, and then so it's just like, the whole thing has been changed when I got to Watts. So I went to 52nd Street School, John Muir, and then graduated from Manual. And so that's where I sort of, grew up in that environment with the Gladiators and just that whole neighborhood. That's how I know everybody around in that neighborhood, because the ones that were older, like Bird, he was in the Slauson. Bird was in the Slauson, and Bunchy was in the Slauson, but all of them were older than I was. Each set, which I don't hear a lot about, each set have their own, like, people that they looked up to, and they have their heroes, like the Slauson had like Bunchy and Bird and Bit, and we had people like Floyd Patterson, we had Bullet. So we had every set have their sort of legend in the neighborhood. When I was in high school, I think is when I really started trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to be a lawyer. I got discouraged from trying to be a lawyer because of the Mr. Trickstand. He told me about, I know Negroes being lawyers and, stuff like that, need to try to pursue something else. So he was just a negative memory that I have with Mr. Trickstand. He used to tell me, that. So I got my fail. That's the first fail I ever got. My moms couldn't understand why and stuff. And then I ended up going to summer school. First time I had to go to summer school to makeup class. At that time, I was I just graduated from Manual Arts High School. I just turned 17 years old. 3 months before I got out of high school, I got married. Then I graduated from high school, and then I got my first well-paying job. I used to work at McDonnell Douglas, and I was about to have my first son, Larry Joseph Steiner Jr. That was my first son. So I was well on my way, because the gang thing was like a thing out of it. I still had contact with a lot of them, but I just graduated from high school, so now I'm ready to live the American dream. And so I had all this stuff going on. I had, I was looking for a house, a white picket fence, and some kind of obedient dog. But then in '65, when they had the Watts Revolt, and before that I was watching on TV as the dogs and the water hoses being turned loose on nonviolent protesters, and I couldn't understand for the life of me why these civil rights demonstrators wouldn't fight back. That would just irritate me, So I am looking for something to get into. And then I saw Maulana on TV. He had this debate with Joe Pine. I'm listening, yeah, tell him that, and Maulana was saying, I'm not a Negro, I'm African by descent, American by unfortunate circumstance. And he was saying all these different things, and this thing is just so intriguing to me. I just said, man, I gotta find this guy. I got my brother to go, and we went to the first soul session down there. It was the end of '66, I think. On Broadway, before the Black Council, because this one, they had the only black building they had on Broadway. He was talking about how we have to have culture, identity, purpose, and direction, and black power is self-determination, self-respect, and self-defense. He said, if you didn't just pop up out of the cotton fields of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and he just gave a whole new life of how I view history. I'm wrestling with, my morality, but I'm understanding too the historical context in which he's trying to create it. So it drew me in. So I became just immersed in him and everything that he said about it, and the praises, and I got in wholeheartedly. I mean, wholeheartedly. I was a member, and I was willing to die for the cause. When the Free Huey rally that we had together at the sports arena, that was, we was on security.
You were there for that.
Yeah. So what what we would do, we would set up a joint security thing if it was another organization, and they would take certain areas. Sometimes it would be a mutual agreement that who would take the inside, who would take the outside. The UCLA campus, a lot of ideological stuff going on. They had a community advisory board that supposedly decided to select who it is. It's made up of Walt Breman and Karenga and somebody from SNCC, and it had different people that were on this committee. This guy Charles Thomas was selected to be a part of that. But Karenga was considered the most influential voice on the committee, so he had probably more persuasiveness in terms of him being there. The argument was a reasonable argument, for the students to make the decision. January 17th, okay, we had a meeting before on the 15th. And the 15th was something that set it up for January 17th.
Okay.
You have one set of people, students, who are saying, yeah, teach Maulana, and then you had the other side, no, you don't tell us what, so it was like this two divided room arguing about, or praising them, and the other one that's talking crazy. And it just didn't make sense to me, and I was just wondering, I said, man, if you can just not say it. Then Joe Brown got some Panthers walking up the hall drilling. But what happened, my brother and I, we got a case in Orange County. So the deal in our organization that if you got a case, you're out on bail, then you don't carry weapons because, you know, the word we say, economic assassination, that they try to drain the organization of finances by, if you're on bail, they arrest you, and then, you know, then you lose the bail and all that kind of stuff. So the whole military thing for us is not to carry any weapon, but we have security. That's how Chochese was with us, and Tawala, and, you know, so other people who had weapons. So we would have definitely had a weapon if it hadn't been for the Orange County case. I was still conducting security because I had Tawala with me, and Tawala's supposed to be in the search. I position people in different locations, and I had to secure the parameters. After we got inside, the people that standing around there, I had Tawala stand over there by the door, and Tawala he just don't want to follow instructions, so he went out. He ran into Elaine Brown, who he had this little, it's like a little flirtatious thing. She used to make fun about his mustache, and he was talking about, you know, taming a panther, and they used to have this thing back and forth. He decided to leave his post and go and try to have this conversation with her when he was supposed to be on his post. According to her testimony, he pulled on her purse or something she had on there, and then she cussed him out and then left. As she was leaving, she said Bunchy and John confronted her. What's wrong with you? What, you know, why don't never let a nigga put his hand on you. You know, had that argument over there. So Bunchy and John decided they were gonna go and deal with the situation. So I'm looking for Tawala, you know, and Tawala is coming back to his post, you know, and I'm getting a list, and I'm telling him, man, you know, he's gonna do some extra duty on guard at the Hick Hollow. So, and he's used to doing that. So I told him he's gonna have to do that because I told him not to leave his post. So I went back over and I'm talking to Tony Cooks and another student. And meanwhile, they approached Tawala, who sat down, and they had, here's what I saw. Now I'm to my scene from where I am. I saw them not, you know, they came in the gun. They had weapons in their hand. Bunchy had a weapon, and John had a weapon in. And they was trying to pistol whip him from where I was. They wasn't just coming and shooting. They was trying to pistol whip him. And as John was pistol whipping, the gun went off. And after the gun went out, that's what all pandemonium just broke off in the thing. It was like over 150 people in the room. So it was crowded in the room, but everybody scattered. Chochese stepped in because he didn't know what was going on, and they had guns, so he fired. And one bullet hit Bunchy and one bullet hit John, but a lot of bullets went out, but most of the bullets was from John because John just started firing. Most of it was random, you know, and the bullet hit me in the shoulder. And then when I looked over there, I saw Tawala on the floor, frozen. I thought he got killed. I thought he was shot because he just was you know, just sitting on the floor, you know, and Bunchy and John laying on the floor. So I left over there to try to see what's going on with him. And I see he's not dead, he's just, you know, frozen. And I said, get the fuck up, you know, and let's get out of here. And that's when we left. And I stepped over Bunchy and passed by John and ran down the hallway. And then my brother, which people say he came with us, my brother didn't come with us. My brother went out the window. And he didn't come over to call. It was me, Stoddy, Chochese, and another brother. And I ended up in San Diego, but we never stayed in one place. Up the last place when we surrendered was the place when we decided that, you know, it's better for us to go based on what the attorney told us. Said that they're not looking for nobody but Chochese, and that we didn't do anything, you know. So. You know, it's better for us just to go and just clear that up. It won't be long because we didn't have any weapons. We didn't shoot anybody. So after they removed the bullet, then the whole theory thing changed, that it was a hit, you know, and that we were this elite hit squad of the US organization sent on a mission to kill the Panthers over a Black Power thing. This was the whole DA's thing on that. So I wasn't surprised. I knew that I was in custody now. And then they had conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts, grand jury. They had a grand jury thing, and that's what it was based on. So they made us into this elite hit squad and, you know, mastermind, and they just made it into a whole thing and used that with the organization. So Lauren Miller, he wrote the court when I got back saying that, you know, that I never should have gone to prison. You know, it was based on a conspiracy theory. He wrote on my escape trial. He was a judge then, before he was an attorney. We were in contact, at least I was in contact about what's going on with the organization, some of the structure, and that they're going to put security on my wife and kids and family. So they had a security squad around them because they were receiving like bomb threats, and Panthers on one side, Muslim on the other side, and they got security around them. And they got to sit in the seats when they talk about murderers, and you know, so that whole court thing was traumatic for them to be there with, you know, in between that there of conspiracy to commit murder. While this time I'm separated from my children for a whole 11 years, and I'm thinking about Erica and her daughter because she had a 3-week-old baby. Mm-hmm. And I know that, you know, that I always ask myself, what questions would she ask, you know, about her father? So when Vanya came in there and she had this thing, I went up to her and I said, look, my name is Watani Steiner, and you know, I was involved in UCLA. I said, do you think that Erica Huggin would want to, you know, enter into a restorative justice dialogue with me? But I believe that I was part of an atmosphere that caused the death of, you know, your husband and Bunchy. And for that, I'm truly sorry for it. And I'm hoping that we can at least, you know, talk about this and maybe model something for the next generation, you know, and how can we pass the historical baton on to our children.